Welcome, boys and girls. Alright guys, I'm really sorry that I had to do that. But yeah, I'm really excited to make this list. This is a video that I've been wanting, where a video like this is something I've been wanting to do since I started this channel, but I've felt intimidated by it. I felt like I'm not qualified, because to me horror is and always has been very important part of my life, like something that I love and have always loved and really respect and value, and I was like, I'm not qualified to do a list like this justice. So I've kind of avoided it, kind of put it on the back burner. And then Nick at the Book Graveyard made his top 10 80s horror paperback list, and it was awesome to watch, and I loved it, and it got me all excited. October's coming up, and you know, I was like, let me just look at what I've read. Let me look at my Goodreads. Let me pull them all out, and let me see if I can make a top 10 list. And I did. And you know, I started thinking, it might not be the perfect list. It might not be the, you know, greatest list of all time, but it's my list. It's the list based on what I have read. And maybe I'll update it every year as I read more. But I want to be fully transparent, you know, so I'm going to start off by telling you, let's see here. So I have read 38 adult horror paperbacks from the 1980s. And that is just like Nick's list. I'm not going to count Stephen King. He's not counted in that total, and he's not going to be on this list just because, you know, I love Stephen King. I've read a lot of Stephen King, but he's on every list ever. Everybody's familiar with his stories and his books. Even if you haven't read them, they're just a part of the cultural zeitgeist. And so I don't need to talk about him on here. That's not to say he's not great. He is, but this is for, you know, everything else. It's for the books he helped popularize. I mean, if it weren't for Stephen King in the 80s becoming successful, maybe a lot of these books wouldn't have even been written. I acknowledge that, but he's not on the list. What else? I took off any, that's not counting any young adult horror novels or middle grade horror novels. This is just adult horror novels. It's also not counting anything that might be horror adjacent, you know, maybe like dark thrillers or occult detective or I don't know, anything that's not like horror. So yeah, 38. I feel like those are rookie numbers and I need to step those numbers up. But yeah, I just wanted you to know, like, me basing a top 10 list, this is what I'm working with, just so you're aware. So without further ado, let's do it. Coming in at number 10 is Michael McDowell's The Elementals, released in 1981. Michael McDowell, if you don't know, was once called by Stephen King the, I'm not reading anything right now, but so this is not a quote, I'm paraphrasing, but he called him like the greatest horror paperback original writer alive or something. And I would agree. He's fantastic writer. He was like a gay man from Arkansas, I think, and he actually wrote the screenplay for Beetlejuice, the movie. I've read 3 of his books, and everything I've read by him has been great. The Elementals is generally considered to be his best. I got it at number 10 on the list, so there are books I think are better, but the writing is fantastic. The setting is fantastic. The atmosphere is fantastic. The story itself, I think, is fine. It's good. Basically, it's about this southern family in the Gulf of Alabama, and they own these bizarre twin, or maybe there's three of them, I can't remember, homes, Victorian style homes, right on this, like, in the bay. I think it's on, like, the intracoastal side, like the lakes, the intracoastal side. And basically one of the houses is being basically eaten by the sand. It's like sinking in, which creates this incredible visual of this like spooky, half-buried, sand-covered Victorian house that they believe is haunted, and they don't go in it. And yeah, it's just about that creepy house and this rich family who's living in the house next door to it over the summer on vacation. And yeah, Michael McDowell is great. If you haven't read him, definitely read him. And The Elementals is an excellent book and comes in at number 10 on my list. Number 9 is Graham Masterton's Walkers from 1989. This is just a fun one. God, I'm already like questioning my list. I'm like, oh, should that have gone before? Whatever, dude. Here's 10 great books. I'm trying to order them the best that I can. Walkers is great. I love Graham Masterton. Walkers was a lot of fun. It's basically about this guy, from what I can remember. It's sometimes, some of these books it's been a while since I've read, so I'll do my best. But he's, you know, driving down this road or whatever, and for whatever reason, I can't remember, he gets out and they find this like old prison that's abandoned, or an insane asylum or something, and they go inside, and his son goes missing and basically is like sucked into the walls, and there's like all of the walls are like haunted by the criminals or lunatics, I can't remember, who are like used to live there and have died there. Yeah, it's super creepy. These like walls coming to life and stuff. Yeah, it's great. It's a lot of fun. It's a fun one compared to The Elementals, which is definitely more of a darker, spookier vibe. But Walkers is just a lot of fun, which I love fun in my horror novels. So that's coming in at number 9. Number 8, Down on the Farm by John Scher, published in 1987. So I actually talked about this one on one of my monthly reading wrap-ups because I read it early this year. It's really well done. It's really short. And it's basically like Lovecraftian horror in the Midwest. So like this ancient evil is living underneath of this guy's barn. And yeah, it's exactly what you'd hope for in that kind of a book. It's creepy, it's atmospheric, it's well done, it's fast paced, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. God, am I really going to make this comparison? I have also read The Ceremonies by T.E.D. Klein, and I did not, well, okay, I already spoiled it. Spoiler alert, it's not on this list. It's a great book, horror book written from the 80s, but it's just so long and plodding, and T.D. Klein just is such a great writer. The prose is fantastic, but he just like meanders through that story. And I feel like if you want that kind of Lovecraftian horror, but just done quicker, punchier, Down on the Farm is what you want. So that is number something. I'll put the number up. I'm already losing track. But the next one, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that was 7, right? 10, 9. Oh my God, whatever. I'm terrible at this, guys. 10, 9, 8. That was 8. This is 7. The Lake by Ruby Jean Jensen came out in 1983. This is another just kind of pulpy, guilty pleasure type thing. Ruby Jean Jensen is great. I've only read 2 of her books, but I loved both of them. And this is one of her earlier ones. It was actually published as R.J. Jensen. Well, not earlier. I know she wrote some Gothics way earlier. But anyways, this one was about this guy who decides to open like a lakeside resort. I think it's where is this one set? I'm not gonna look it up, but somewhere in the South, I think. And basically, the lake is supposedly haunted by, not haunted, it's like a monster lives there, this like lake monster, and that's what this book is. It's like a lake monster, and I am a sucker for creature features, and this one is a lot of fun. The creature eats people, and there's some great visuals with like, I think there's like a deer or a moose or something that goes into this lake, and there's like this hole in the middle, and I don't know. It's been a while since I've read it, but I had a lot of fun with it. And it's great. So let's see. Next one was another creature feature. This is Saurian by William Scholl, published in 1988. William Scholl mostly writes creature features to my knowledge. And this one was a lot of fun. It's basically about this giant reptilian creature thing that comes from the sea, but there's a little twist in that this giant reptilian creature from the sea can turn into a human. And this human has like made himself this super rich person, and he's also got this like weird spine, so he has to wear like big coats to like cover his little reptilian attributes. And it's all about like this guy and then this other guy whose parents were killed when he was a kid by this creature, but like everything was covered up and nobody believes him and thinks he's a crazy person. But yeah, it's really well written, just a lot of fun. And like I said, I love fun. I love creature features in my horror. And yeah, this was super good. So let's see, next one, Live Girls by Ray Garton, 1987. So this one is probably one of the least obscure books on my list. Not that my list is that obscure, especially compared to Nick from the Book Graveyard's list. I have read some books that are as obscure as the ones on his list, but they all sucked. Anyways, Live Girls, Ray Garton, basically a vampire story set in the 80s in grungy, grimy New York City. It's like vampires on like New York City's peep show, sex theater kind of street. Like one of those girls is a vampire, and it's gross and it's violent and it's very splatterpunky. And it's just very fast-paced and fun. So splatterpunk fun, I'm there. Yeah, I haven't actually read the sequel to this yet, which I should because I clearly like the book. I will get around to that at some point. Next one, released in 1987. This is The Breeze Horror by Candice Caponegro. So I bought this years ago because the cover is just hilariously amazing. It's like this curtain that is also an angry face. And I found it in the wild and read it, and man, that was way better than I expected from what I remember. It's like, I'm already gonna butcher this because it's been a long time, but I can't remember if there's a hurricane or like a snowstorm or the apocalypse or whatever, but basically this group of people are trapped on this island like off the coast of New York or something, New Jersey, maybe New York, and I believe it had to do with this meteor that comes down and contaminates something. Basically, some of the people turn into these like rotting, flesh-eating, zombie-like creatures, but they also have like personalities and they think for themselves, and they're like fueled by hate, and they like live on the beach, and people start referring to them as like the beachers. And they're these like nasty creatures. It's just like drippy, goopy, zombie-like horror, but it's very original in how it's told and how it's done, and that's like the attributes of the zombies, because zombies in general I'm usually kind of met on, but this is like not quite zombies. It's like very, very original splatterpunky take on a zombie book with a really unique setting. It's really, really interesting novel and really well done, and I really liked it. So that's that one. We're getting into the good stuff here, guys. Next is The Heirloom by Thomas Luke. I don't know if this is recency biased. I just read this and just talked about it on my channel, so I'm sorry if you just heard me talk about it. Now you have to hear me talk about it again. Thomas Luke is the pen name for Graham Masterton, and I love this one. It's short, it's punchy, it's fast-paced, it's original. It's just fun. I loved it. It's once again just about like a demon infested chair, or ancient chair, and as silly as that sounds, it's exactly what I would want out of one of these trashy horror novels. Just like a quick, fun, engaging, spooky read, which is what it is. I'm easy to please, guys. All right, and now for the top two here, which, if I'm being completely honest, maybe I could flip-flop them, but I'm gonna stick with where I am for now. Coming in at number 2, released in 1982, also written by Michael McDowell. Ooh, The Elementals is not my favorite Michael McDowell book, I know. Katie. I feel like nobody talks about Katie when they're talking about Michael McDowell. They talk about The Elementals, they talk about Blackwater, they talk about Cold Moon Over Babylon, whatever. Katie. Ooh, so good. Such a good book. Everybody should read Katie. It's just very, very, very original. It takes place in like, I can't remember the decade, but it's like very, very early New York City, like 1920s, 1910s, something like that. And it's just about this girl, Katie, who is just like a serial killer back in this time. And I'm not going to give you details because Michael McDowell is just so good at his like characterization. Like the characters are always so good. The scenes are so like spooky and macabre, and his writing is so good, and just what a unique and original like setting for horror, which is I think why it spoke to me so much. But it's violent, it's pretty intense, while also somehow still being like fun and funny in parts. I just love this book so much, and I think my personal recommendation, if you're checking out Michael McDowell, is to track down a copy of Katie and give it a read, because that is my favorite one so far. And clocking in at number 1, this might be a hot take, but that's what I live for, right? So coming in at number 1, we're gonna have, shoot, that's not correct. Goodreads is telling me it was published in 1976, but I know that's not right because I double checked this somewhere else. Hold on. Yeah, the anticipation's killing you, I know, guys. But that's, that's more fun, right? Coming in at, 1981, Specimens by Fred Saberhagen. So, I know, you're like, what? He's a sci-fi writer. What are you talking about, Brian? Ah, mad. Well, get over it. This is my list. This is a book that I picked up simply because the cover that I found was just beyond silly. It was the silliest thing I've ever seen, and I grabbed it. Which is actually a Wayne Barlow cover, who is a fantastic artist. But I think there's a couple different covers. I'll show both. But I picked it up simply because I thought it looked silly, and I gave it a read kind of on a whim. Man, I love this book. And yes, it has sci-fi elements because the horror in it is an alien entity, but the horror is so well done. Usually when I read a horror book, it's just silly and fun for me. I don't generally get scared, but this one, like, I didn't get scared, but the horror in it feels so palpable, feels so real. It's basically like this alien creature is controlling this man like a puppet and making him do things, making him abduct and like maybe hurt his own children, his own family, and he's in there thinking the whole time like how he doesn't want to do it and stuff. And it's just like so haunting to this, like he wrote so well this like loss of control over your own body. And yeah, it's like it's I love sci-fi, I love horror, and this is just such an expert blend of the two. And also Fred Saberhagen is a fantastic writer, and I feel like nobody talks about this book. Not a lot of people have reviewed it on Goodreads. It has like 77 ratings. It's just so good. I loved it so much. And so my hope is that if you're into horror and you're watching this list, maybe you will look into this book, because I don't think a lot of people would pick it up thinking it was horror, but it is very horror. I would say more horror than sci-fi, but yeah, that's my number one for the decade of the 80s. If I haven't mentioned it, I also have compiled my list for the 90s horror and 2000-2009 horror, and I will post those videos at some point in the future, soon-ish. And I'm considering anything 2010 and newer to be modern horror. I don't know if that's the official definition, but that's what I'm doing. So at some point in the future, I'll do my favorite 90s, favorite aughts, and maybe modern. So there you go, guys. Let me know if you disagree, you think any of these books are terrible, I should have a different order, recommendations, whatever. Look forward to hearing from you in the comments. Later, guys.